in this tournament, but what you really don't want to do is maybe throw that away, put yourself on tilt a little bit, and cause your tournament to slow down quite a chunk. So that's really important, I think, for these trainers to lean into what they know. I think for Daniele, it's got to be go back to that Shedinja, cause so many problems with the ally switch, cause so many problems with just the ability, Wonder Guard, meaning you can barely get hit. And then looking over on Eisuke's side, got to be conservative with that Groudon again. They've both got to do exactly what won them their game. That is going to be a very interesting match if that's what we're going to see. There is going to be, once again, that Zacian Venusaur. I do really, really like that. I think the Venusaur can do a lot on its own, but right back to the Galarian Moltres.
Okay, so Daniele must feel really confident that maybe if things were played just a touch differently in that game number 2, that this Galarian Moltres would be able to sweep the competition. But the fact that Eisuke has gone back to basics here with that Venusaur and that Zacian, you definitely have the ability to kind of play around with that some more. You know you have some big damage on the board, and the way that Eisuke was able to pivot and rotate around really did help to keep that Venusaur alive.
The Venusaur getting the Vine Lash down was honestly one of the biggest factors in his game number 2 win as well. Those little bits of residual damage between turns added up. It took 2 of the 4 knockouts when he won the game, and it just feels like as long as he lands that move, he could just be in a great position to continue to win another game in this set. So a lot riding, I think, on the move choice. Maybe that Shedinja's in the back, but it seems very hard to justify giving up all of the pieces. Incineroar coming in, we like that. We like the Zacian getting intimidated. Of course, that is going to be a little bit annoying if you're Eisuke, but you can still do a lot of damage with the Behemoth Blade.
Well, we saw that as well, that despite the fact that you ended up bringing that Zacian down to neutral, when it went for the Behemoth Blade onto the Dynamax Galarian Moltres, you still activated the Berserk ability, like it still got it to below half. But it's another pivot here as well as both Zacian leave the field. Eisuke also bringing out the Incineroar, but there's no Dynamax this time around. It's just going to be a solid protect, as that will negate the Behemoth Blade coming out from Eisuke's Zacian.
But Daniele got a much more impactful Incineroar switch in. He managed to land an Intimidate onto the Zacian. Of course, the Intimidate going down onto the opposing Galarian Moltres. Not that important and not feeling that good if you're Eisuke. So definitely a lot more value in that one. Of course, you did get it on the opposing Incineroar, but that's not really the damage dealer that you need to be worried about. The Moltres, realizing what happened in the last game, does decide to take its time. And there's all 4 Pokemon confirmed for Daniele, so no sign of that Shedinja, which I was so impressed with in Game 1. Must mean that he's confident in the game plan that he can play around with this Galarian Moltres.
Ooh, look at that. We're going to see Eisuke's Incineroar move first, but we're not going to see Incineroar not being able to move right away, I don't think.
Well, I believe they were just trying to match the fake outs.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they played an honest coin flip, if you will. Just went for the fake out on each other, or potentially the fake out was going over to the Zacian, but it doesn't matter. Eisuke's go first, shuts down that Incineroar, and maybe, you know, there was a definite feeling from Eisuke that Daniele was going to play the Moltres safely, does switch it out, and that means there's a substitute up and sticking around. That's absolutely huge for a Zacian. It's something we've not seen in a little while. When Zacian was first coming to the format, I think all of them had substitute, but now we've mixed it up a little bit. We have decided to go with some more attacking options, such as the Play Rough in that slot, and going back to basics is going to help this Zacian get a lot of wiggle room. There is going to be a Dynamax, and it's not going to be the Galarian Moltres in this game after it struggled. So maybe Daniele really looking to the key factor in game number 1 was that even if Groudon came in, he could control the weather with the Dynamax Kyogre. That is the thing that he's really, really leaning in on. And of course, it does take the Behemoth Blades very, very nicely.
Yeah, it's not only that though as well, right? I mean, look at that close combat. It's going to do barely anything to that Kyogre, and we're still going to see those drops come through. Yes, Zacian is still hiding behind a substitute, but now that this Max Geyser is going to fire off in the rain, that substitute is not going to take that super well.
But the big thing is, that wasn't directly into the Zacian, and that is really big. I do think the close combat is underwhelming, and that's something I'm very curious about when you look at, you know, how did Eisuke build this team? Why close combat instead of Sacred Sword? We've all agreed that Sacred Sword is the move choice. Yes, you would like the fighting option, but close combat, maybe there's a knockout it gets, but it does feel pretty bad. And now that substitute's gone, you are more vulnerable with those defense drops. You know, Zacian can take hits pretty nicely. You know, it's just sort of a naturally bulkier Pokemon. But after those close combat drops, it looks way easier to knock it out, as this Flareblitz does a lot, even in the rain. If there was, of course, a neutral weather or the sun, that would have been an easy knockout. So smart, I think, there of, you know, Eisuke to throw up the Venusaur once again. He's also got the Kyogre locked a little bit. Being able to lock that Kyogre in with the special attack drop from the parting shot, it's so tough. You want to keep it in, you want to keep it resetting the weather in case the Groudon turns up, but it could just get caught by G-Max Vine Lash right now.
Yeah, and that, I mean, despite the fact that, you know, you will be able to take that a little bit more comfortably, we saw the survivability of that Kyogre in the face of that Frenzy Plant. You still don't want to be taking too much damage. And with the Venusaur being as speedy as it is, in the sun, you know that you're going to be taking that damage first and don't want to fall to a critical hit or anything like that.
It's certainly a tough situation as Zacian leaves the field for Eisuke. So already, yeah, he's going for it with the weather play. He must be confident he can knock out the Kyogre here, because otherwise I think we get a run back of that early situation in Game 1 where you just set the sun, you get one turn of Chlorophyll, and then, of course, you immediately get Max Geysered, and then you start to really struggle from there. So the Moltres coming back into play, maybe saving that Fake Out and Intimidate combo for later, and unsurprisingly, it is going to be the Venusaur going Gigantamax. He's got to be really believing in the ability of this, you know, G-Max Vine Lash to be able to get the one-hit knockout on this Kyogre. And with the Assault Vest, you're asking a whole lot.
Definitely are, but you know, that Kyogre has taken just a bit of chip, so it might be a little bit easier or within range of some type of damage roll, but the G-Max Vine Lash really doesn't do much at all still. Just brings that Kyogre to just below half HP, and now, while you got that residual damage up, Kyogre gets to go for a Max Geyser, and that's still a lot. Like, that Groudon is not happy.
Yeah, once again, it's well over half. And the item choice on this Groudon just doesn't seem to be helping it in these situations that he needs in this game. Of course, Moltres coming in is going to get worn down by the G-Max Vine Lash, and there is a world where that can be very, very important, but we'll get to that later. The Kyogre is the big issue right now. The Kyogre, once again, has its rain set up, feeling really, really good about that. You know, this could just be a hard pivot to maybe get Groudon back out. But my concern is what comes in. Incineroar will get knocked out. Zacian will take a huge amount of damage and probably get knocked out, because this Kyogre can kind of do whatever it wants right now. And that is a massive, massive concern, particularly as it goes into its final turn of Dynamax and would be able to just lay down the damage.
The Venusaur might still be faster, though, despite the rain being up. I think that still remains to be seen. I'm not sure if we had seen that interaction before in a previous game, but we're going to see the switches first. So Groudon leaving the field, Incineroar coming in. This does provide some type of fake-out pressure or the ability to pivot with a parting shot later, knowing that Daniele has some really nice answers to what is in the back. And there it is. Yeah. G-Max Vine Lash is going to go first, and that Kyogre, 1 HP, and a dream here. Holy moly, that Venusaur, you know, it's going to have to take some damage here too, but the Hurricane as well from the Galarian Moltres also gets the confusion onto the Incineroar. Here comes the Max Geyser too, and that is just going to be insult to injury here as you get the knockout onto the Incineroar.
And that's a big pivot piece gone for Eisuke's team. Being caught there with the switch in, yes, something was going to go down. I wasn't ever convinced that G-Max Vine Lash was going to get there. It felt so underwhelming. And I always thought that, yes, even if you hit it, you know, you are just going to be able to take it. Even with the Vine Lash between turns, yes, there is a potential for a low damage roll, but that is absolutely huge. And being able to pick off that Incineroar really, really helps out. Yes, you do go to a 3-3 matchup, but you have your Incineroar left, and you are looking at an opposing side which has both the Zacian and the Groudon. They both hate being intimidated. You, on the other hand, have now taken it away, so when your Zacian comes back in at some point, you are going to be able to cause a number of problems. This Groudon is exceptionally low too, is setting up the drought, so everything rides on the Venusaur for this turn, which, you know, when it comes to trying to set as much damage as it can, it's being asked to do a lot, particularly with predominantly single target attacks. There's the confirmation of the item on the Groudon. It's the white herb, but the Incineroar can still switch out and come back in later.
It can, but do you really want to switch in the Zacian knowing that there may be the opportunity to go for something like the Precipice Blades here? I mean, holy, I don't think it matters anymore. That critical hit going to knock out the Galarian Moltres, and that was still going to be excessive damage in the sun, but seeing that Galarian Moltres isn't going to have that much value in this game is not great. Incineroar as well, taking the Rock Slide, and it will be able to go for the Flare Blitz though, so yeah, the Venusaur is out of here, but this 2v2 situation, you don't have the ability to pivot in the Incineroar anymore when the Zacian's going to come in.
No, the Incineroar isn't going to get to land an impactful Intimidate in this game, and it's also going to get knocked out at the end of the turn. So this Zacian has a whole lot of work to do. That said, I mean, you've got to be cautious. It's going to be a tough situation. I do think Daniele is still kind of in this one, just because of how low something like the Groudon is. I mean, you can easily level it up, then it might just come down to the training. So the Zacian over on his side is full health. They're both going to get their boosts, and they're both going to be able to hold on to those boosts.
Well, the one thing that I think makes this a little bit more favored for Eisuke right now is the fact that we saw the Zacian on Eisuke's side get the Intrepid Sword boost first, and in previous games as well, we've also seen Eisuke's Zacian move first. So this Behemoth Blade is going to be able to target down Daniele's final Pokemon in that Zacian to be able to get it quite low. And if this Groudon is able to survive here, even if it doesn't, you know, that Eisuke's Zacian can just kind of clean it up here.
It's all about the Zacian, and honestly, as long as this Groudon connects a move, which it definitely should do, you really are. You're playing for the miss, but it does have moves that can miss a whole lot. There's the Precipice Blades. It is going to connect.
There you go.
And Eisuke is going to be able to take this set 2-1. What a fine comeback. And that is a difference in the way that they train Zacian in different regions. We've talked about this before. Japanese players love a fast Zacian.
They do. Max speed seems to be the way to go. Sometimes you see the quick attack on there as well, just for that priority damage output. But, you know, there's definitely a way that you can kind of maybe play around having that Zacian endgame sometimes, but when it comes down to a Zacian endgame, and it's a Zacian versus Zacian, you certainly need to, it feels good to be able to have that speed in your advantage. But if that Precipice Blades had missed, that becomes a whole different ball.